All right, we are doing a portrait session, wedding, golden hour, into blue hour. It's our buddy Josh and his wife Tina. And they got married a year ago, so they got back in their wedding garb, and we're gonna go to North Avenue Beach, like the most popular place to do portraits in Chicago, but we're gonna make it different. We're gonna make it cool, and I want you to see it. Mike also came along for the shoot. He was on the C70 shooting video, and he shot 60 frames per second the whole time to get that slow motion look that you would normally get during golden hour and blue hour with a couple. Shooting film, shooting digital, new MAMIYA 645 AF. It is 645 AF, if you know what I mean. R5. 50 mil prime, got a 1/8 Pro Mist on there. We got 24 mil prime in here, 1.4, and then tilt shift. These are EF mounts, so I need to bring the adapter to convert to RF mount for the R5. It's windy, it's a vibe, it's gonna be a lot of fun. Come along. Look at the happy couple. As soon as we got there, we had barely any light left. With the light dipping below the trees, I could tell it was gonna go in like a couple of minutes. So I had them stand right up against the wall on this circular shape on the wall. It's like this boathouse at North Avenue Beach to get that harsh light before it was gone. And then it went away within a minute. As we walked over to the hook, the part where the skyline at North Avenue Beach, I was photographing them walking, and I do this a lot during portrait sessions, just how they naturally walk together. Sometimes I'll give them prompts just to hold hands, maybe just kind of bump hips a little bit, and just kind of be themselves. Try to get them giggling a little bit, laughing, enjoying their time. So I found this other spot where we still had some harsh light, so I put them up on this higher spot with sand and got this beautiful vignette of them being frontlit facing each other. As soon as I got that look, I knew I didn't have that much time left. I knew the sun was dipping below the tree line from that angle as well, so I got to the other side and backlit them and saw how the 50 flares. I haven't had a ton of experience with the 50mm RF in the wild yet, but seeing how it flared in this situation was epic. Okay, I was on face detection, autofocus, and sometimes when it's backlit like that, it struggles to get it right, so I switched to center point autofocus, and then I could lock my focus in at 1.6 to get that crazy flare. Plus, we shot this on film, and Steven was shooting film alongside me this entire time as well, so you'll see some of his shots on the screen. We were both shooting Portrait 800 on the MAMIYA 645 AF and AFD. So that was the last time we had harsh light with golden hour. So there's not a ton of golden hour stuff technically. I mean, it's still golden hour for the next 20 minutes of this shoot. It's just below the tree line at this point. Now on the video side, if it gets to be too dark, you might want to switch from 60 frames per second to 24 frames per second. Mike didn't do that in this shoot, but also in blue hour to accentuate that look, I built my LUT pack to have different looks in the cinematic realm. The two cinematic looks, Avondale and North Park. Avondale is this really warm cinematic look, and North Park is this really cool cinematic look. So I like emphasizing that during blue hour with the North Park LUT. So that's where I really started to focus in on some other aspects that I like to do during a portrait session, like incorporating music. So I asked Tina and Josh what they'd like to listen to, and Tina resoundingly said Paramore. So we started to listen to Paramore. I busted out the tilt shift lens and put them in front of one of the other elements in North Avenue Beach that I think is so interesting and exciting, is the water. So I put them in front of the water and got these portraits of them posed in a typical pose I use for couples. Got them laughing a bit, cracking some jokes, singing some songs, and as we were walking, I switched to my 24 as they were moving from that place to the next, and since Paramore was playing, Tina decided to dance a little bit. This is not something I typically give as a prompt since I'm a pretty introverted photographer. I like capturing it when other people feel like that is something that they would naturally do. So she started dancing, I started capturing it, and then they both started dancing, and it was fun. Moving in this next section, I just wanted to get some standard looks of them looking at the camera and being in front of the skyline. And then we moved out to the farther part of the hook where I decided to go down in the sand. I had to go like another 100 meters off of the hook into the sand to get this reflection of the water underneath them, where then I used my tilt shift. From there, wanting to get another look, sort of moving into blue hour now, I noticed that there were a couple of clouds in the distance. After getting that busy shot with the city in the background, I wanted to get more of a minimalist shot. So I moved over with the 50mm prime again and got this reflection shot in portrait format. Really excited how this one turned out with that little cloud up in the top left corner. I think it's just a really cool juxtaposition from the city look to this minimal look. And this is what I love doing into Blue Hour, really playing with the counter sunset that happens on the opposite side of the sky from where the sun is setting. From there, we moved into a more interesting look now that it was getting darker and I was noticing I was needing to shoot at slower shutters and not necessarily raising my ISO. We figured we would start doing some shutter drag photos. So I slowed my shutter way down and had them walk across the scene towards each other and past each other while I focused on the skyline. We got some really cool images. Sometimes those creative limitations can force you to slow your shutter down or do something, open up your lens all the way, crank your ISO up. In these scenarios, try to lean into that. Like, a lot of people will stop shooting after golden hour because they think it's too dark, that it's not interesting anymore. But for me, that just fuels a ton of creative inspiration. I especially love Blue Hour too because all of the lights start to turn on in the city environment. And so you get all of this twinkly bokeh in the background with this really cool blue look in the scene. From that point on, I wasn't very creative through the rest of the session. I just kind of let them have time alone to kind of snuggle and just look at the skyline, photograph their feet dangling in the water, over the water, photographing her ring on her hand, and just having some intimate moments just hanging out. And then finally, as I do for a lot of sessions, I love to close it out with a double exposure. So I got their silhouette on one shot and the city in the background on another, and I did a couple of variations of this. I hope that was helpful. I hope that was creatively fulfilling for you to watch that, maybe gave you some ideas for your next shoot. And thanks for watching.